Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to Vlog 142, Academic Audiobooks. Wow. So we're doing something quite prescient today. In these vlogs, I always try and predict, if I can for you, the next big thing. So many vlogs ago, 50 or 60 vlogs ago, we did a session on the video abstract. So how you create a video abstract, and it enables the increased citation rates to your research and also increased visibility. So incredibly important. There is no doubt in my mind that the next big thing is academic audiobooks. So we're getting in there for you right now today. There are many reasons for you to do this, to enact this audio book. Firstly, it increases your visibility, your author profile. Yes, it creates new audiences for your research, and that's incredibly important. And it also just maybe intervenes in the nature of public discourse at the moment. So all of that's incredibly important, but I need to focus on one more thing, and that is, it is an income stream. You can make money out of audiobooks, and today I'm going to teach you how to do that. How to record one at incredibly low cost, and how to disseminate it widely and bring in that income stream. And it is important that we do this because higher education, universities, these are incredibly precarious workforces. We all know that. There's an international issue whereby the old days of tenure and permanence and stuff, that's pretty well gone. So my responsibility to you, to all our colleagues around the world, is not only to talk about rigor and accountability and high quality research, that's crucial, but also an income stream, how you can create active and passive sources for income to ensure that you can pay your bills. That's part of what we need to do, the responsibility of a university now. And one of those strategies, yes, is the audio book. And think about it, it's great because yes, you'll get an income stream, yes, you'll increase your branding and your profile, yes, you'll increase your citation rates, but the other nice bit of this story, for those of you that are interested in intervening in public debates and public discourses, this is a great way to do it. We can complain and grumble balm about, look at the state of debate on the planet at the moment, isn't it a disgrace? And we can complain, or we can actually create high quality research in multiple modes and disseminate it widely. And that's what we're doing today. So ladies and gentlemen, let's do this. Boom. What is an audiobook? So an audiobook, like is the reading of a book or any other piece of research that we'll talk about in a second. Unabridged is the full reading, and I know this will come as a shock to you. Abridged is a shortened version of the written text. And look, it had a fascinating history, the audiobook. Many of the innovations emerged in the 1930s. And like so many great technological innovations, they emerged through caring for and respecting the needs of those with an impairment or a disability. It is amazing in the history of media, when an innovation is implemented to help a group in the society, and then everyone goes, you know what? That's a really good idea for everybody. And audiobooks is one of those great examples. So of course, originally in the 1930s, it was configured. They were called talking books, and they were geared for the visually impaired, the blind, adults, but also children. So the American Foundation for the Blind and the legendary Library of Congress got together and established the Talking Books program from 1932. Wow. So these programs were extended after the Second World War because something quite important happened. Veterans returned home with visual impairments, or they were blind. And of course, that group of veterans had not learnt Braille when they were children, so new strategies had to be put in place to enable these men and some women to try and be socialised back into society. So again, the Talking Books program was part of that socialisation post the Second World War. Isn't this a fascinating history? Unbelievable. So they were originally created to enhance the life of the blind. But with the 1970s and the proliferation of the audio cassette, and for all the young people out there, this strange object in my hand is an audio cassette. Legendary. I've still got a few actually. It's unbelievable. I had to like search through the house to find one, but there are still a few in the house. But the tape, the audio cassette, is when, wow, the audience for audiobooks started to increase. Obviously the Walkman, the Sony Walkman, is part of this story as well. Audiobook became the industry standard term from 1994. So 1994, audiobook became the word. And audio cassettes as a medium and as a market created an incredibly wide group and an innovation. Travellers and commuters started to use the audiobook. So this is where it started to become significant. So the mobility of the cassette, the Walkman, the Sony Walkman, came together. So it meant that people on public transport, people doing a commute, so the cassette in the car started to become a thing. And interestingly enough, because the commuter market was so important, management and leadership titles started to emerge. So for all my wonderful students in business to this day, management, leadership, business, finance is a very, very big area of audiobooks. So you need to get into this story. By the mid 1990s, the audiobook market was huge. It was worth $1.5 billion, that's with a B, billion dollars in the US every single year. So that is 1995. So this is a big business a long time ago. But what then happened in the mid 1990s? You know what's about to occur. Digitization emerged. So obviously the internet had been around a long time, but the World Wide Web as a navigation tool of the internet started to proliferate as we moved to the year 2000. And just social media started to emerge 1999 with blogs and 2000. But so we've got digitization. We therefore have digital music through the arrival of the legendary iPod. Remember those? iPods. And of course, iTunes. And this created a brand new way to download a diversity of content, including, yes, you've guessed it, audiobooks. What then has happened is if you like, a disintermediation of kit, of hardware, like we're going to talk about shortly, the Zoom. So it meant that people in their own home could start to record stuff like I'm doing now with this video, but like we do with podcasts. So it meant domestic environments started to produce content as much as consume content. So all of a sudden authors realized we don't need anybody else. We don't need a recording studio. We can do this work right now for our audience. So this is when home studios started to proliferate. So we're moving through the 2000s now through to the 2010s. Now you need to hang on to yourself. Audiobooks in the last 5 years have grown 20% a year. 20% a year in the last 5 years. This is big. Now there are many reasons for this growth. Obviously the iPodification of our culture, but the iPhoneification of our culture as well. The length of commutes that we all have to do now to be in work. The desire to fill dead time. In the old days, like 2 years ago, people sort of liked silence. And now it's like whatever we do, we want to be accompanied by something, whether it's public transport or whether it is a car. And also different modes of leisure are emerging through Fitbit cultures, walking cultures, digital leisure. So people are accompanied by music or indeed, you've guessed it, by audiobooks. There is a desire to multitask these days. So if you're doing housework, you're doing the inverted commas menial tasks, we call them menial, but they're incredibly important. You are accompanied by something, and that something is often an audiobook. The demographic that's growing the fastest in this story, so who is the new big market for audiobooks right now today? It is men between the ages of 25 and 44 who do commutes. Now, why that's so important, that's why when I saw that sociology of the audiobook market, that's why I went, I really do have to record this vlog. For those of you that know something about media, there are particular groups that predict the next big thing. They're the canary in the mine. And men, 25 to 44, 45, that's the group that we watch because that is about to be an explosive paradigm or an explosive technology. So the audiobook is about to explode again. So since the 1970s, and I do want to sort of remember this important history, since the 1970s with the audio cassette, it is important to remember another great and important group, and that's the truckies. truckies are incredibly important to the audiobook story. So my respect, because I have a lot of truckies that listen to my podcast, for example. So they're wonderful, hardworking men, some incredibly hardworking women as well, doing these incredibly long trips accompanied by audiobooks. So they were always the market in the 70s, and there's still an important market now where these men are on these long trips and they want a bit of quality content. So let's give it to them. There are also all sorts of new genres that are emerging day upon day upon day. I'll just mention one I discovered actually last week. HarperCollins Story Castle. HarperCollins Story Castle. And that delivers free audio stories for children on a daily basis through Google Assist. So an incredible diversity of genres are now emerging. But also, can I say, knowledge and skill development is an incredibly large area of audiobooks. So say someone wants to learn a new skill, then audiobooks is the way that they do that. So we as academics team, we need to get in here. We are experts, we have high quality content, we can do this. Let's get into this business. The key moment now in this digital history of audiobooks that really is transformative for us as academics is when Amazon bought Audible. This is it. This is crucial. Now, can I say lots of things to say about Amazon, but as an academic who sells books, Amazon changed my life, because our books as academics would never appear in a bookshop. You know, we go down the road, there's a bookshop. Our books would never appear there. Whereas on Amazon, people can be searching on a topic and there is an academic book. Fantastic. But when Audible was bought by Amazon, it meant there's the display of the books. So there's the paperback, there's the ebook, there's the hardback, and you know what? What's next to it? The audiobook. So you can sell on all platforms. Now, academics have been slow moving into this market, so that's why I wanted to do this intervention today. And team, it's not as if audiobooks are just fiction. Those of you that don't do this, who haven't got into this party yet, you might think, oh, it's just fiction. Team, it's nowhere near fiction. Science titles are huge in audiobooks. For all my wonderful students in science, this is such an opportunity for you to disseminate research. Science titles do well. So does history, so does self-help, so does management and leadership. These are big areas. So part of, I think, why we're not talking about this, why this might be the first time you're thinking about academic audiobooks, is because our publishers aren't necessarily aware of it. Because audiobooks are so new, they're not part of the contracts that we sign with publishers. And that's why I really wanted to talk about this today, because I've just been negotiating contracts for a whole series of books, but also audiobooks. So let me tell you how to do this in terms of negotiating your contracts from someone that's just negotiated 2 in the last 2 months. Let's do this. So some of you may know a version of Trump Studies has been released that is an audiobook. So it's available from all good retailers, Amazon, from ebook, hardback, paperback, but it's also available on audiobook. So what happened was Philippa did not want the audiobook rights. Philippa Grange, you met the wonderful Philippa in an earlier vlog. So Philippa, when I was dealing with Emerald, I said, look, I'd really like to do an audiobook. Would you like to be putting that in the contract, or how would you like to handle that? And she said, I'm going to release the audiobook rights to you. We'll have all the other rights in the contract, but I will release that to you and the estate of Steve Redhead. Fantastic. So they were very happy for me to do that. I've done that. And the reason that Philippa was happy to do that is because she knew that it's not going to cannibalize the market, right? So what I mean by that is some publishers may be frightened that, oh, if someone buys an audiobook, they won't then buy the paperback or the ebook or the hardback. Actually, the research shows the exact opposite. The audiobook is a brand new market. People who would never buy the book, the ebook or the paperback, buy the audiobook. And then if they like it, buy it in another format. So it can actually promote the book rather than cut up the market. So Philippa was very aware of that, probably because we've done so much work on podcasting, and she was aware that podcasting lifted the sales of the books. So she was very comfortable to allow the audiobook to be recorded. and it looks like it's selling pretty well, can I say, a week in. So people buy audiobooks that don't buy other modes of books, but then get attracted to the content. Remember that. Okay, so that's my first contract. I'm about to record my second audiobook. As some of you know, my late beloved husband, Steve Redhead, his book from 1990, The End of the Century Party, one of the greatest books ever written, I would argue. That book changed my life. But The End of the Century Party is being reissued by Manchester University Press. And my respect to Caroline and all the wonderful crew at Manchester University Press. You are wonderful. And they asked me for this second edition to write a very, very long prologue, and it's 20,000 words in length, can I say, that frames Steve and this book into the history of cultural studies and indeed in the history of universities and research. Now again, it was interesting, we negotiated the rights. So as an author, as an academic author, don't think, oh look, I've got a contract, I'm so desperate, I'll sign it. Look at the contract carefully and look at what you're signing away. So we negotiated through the contract. We went through 3 iterations of that contract, and they agreed to release to me 100% of the audio rights. They were comfortable with that. The deal we ended up making, and I'm happy to talk about this, is images were being used, so photographs from the wonderful Kevin Cummings, he's a legend. Quite rightly, he's being paid for those images, so it was agreed, right, well, I will pay for those images, including the great one on the cover. I'll pay for those and that rights, and you will release to me the audiobook. And that's what occurred, and it's going incredibly well. Very decent, ethical conversation. So the most important thing is when you see that contract, do not sign the audiobook away. What is happening at the moment is it's being listed in academic contracts as subsidiary rights or other rights, can you imagine? So that's, for example, if they want to take a chapter out of the book and sell it for different purposes. So I'm very happy to relinquish that to the publisher. That's not a worry for me. But the audiobook is actually in the other rights bit of the contract. So what I'm asking you to do is talk to the publisher and get that released from the contract so you can then create an income stream from it. They'll be cool with it. Send them the link to this audiobook. If they're not cool with it, I'm happy to have a chat with them about it, because it will actually increase the sales of the book. It won't cannibalise it, but you deserve a right to have a think about and have a chance to record that audiobook. I also want to make a quick and unexpected point, I think, about Australia. Audible Australia is going gangbusters. Audible Australia, supposedly more Australians download audiobooks by proportion of population than anywhere else in the world. So don't think that like, oh, Australia's just a minor market. In this case, it's really not. And through my career, I've often thought, oh, yeah, my accent, I'm quite comfortable with it, but I'm aware it must sound a bit jarring to people in other countries. But actually, that's not the case. The first thing I'd say is Australians like to hear Australian accents. So there's a big audio market in Australia. Your accent can fulfill that. And secondly, it is seen to be quite an attractive international accent, so do feel free to use it. Be natural, don't be embarrassed, buy it, and use some of those techniques that Tiffany and Lisa talked about last week. Also, the new movement that's occurring in audiobooks is the concurrent release of the audiobook with the ebook, the hardbook, and the hardback and the paperback. In the old days, and we're talking again even 2 years ago, the audiobook would be lagged. So out would come the paperback and or the hardback, and 6 months, even a year later, an audiobook would appear. Now it's concurrent. So when Trump Studies appeared last Saturday, there was the ebook, there was the paperback, and yes, there was the audiobook, all at the same time. So that's the audiobook story. I think you should absolutely do this, but we're not going to stop the vlog here. I'm going to get you in 2 minutes to teach you how to record one. So, okay, I might have convinced you. That's great. Now, what are we going to do? Let's do one of these, and we're going to do it quickly. So let me show you how to record it, and yes, how to upload it. Now, as you know, we've done 2 earlier sessions on sonic media for PhD students and podcasting for PhD students. So I went through in some detail about recording in those. I'm just going to do a quick and dirty version of that now. Now, I know a lot of you have moved into podcasting after that session we did. I'm following all of you. It's sounding amazing. So incredibly well done. So if you're comfortable with podcasting and that's your thing, knock yourself out. Brilliant. But what I would say to you is that the skills that you've used and developed to create those podcasts can be deployed in audiobooks. They are the same skills, a little bit more editing care because you've got a paying audience. So they're slightly heightened skills, but it is the same skill base. So don't think when you're doing podcasting, oh look, that's a finite or a terminal skill. You can then move it into audiobooks. And remember, when I say audiobooks team, it could be the reading of an article. So for my science crew out there team, if you've got one of those great articles, read it. An audiobook can be an hour, it can be 2 hours, it can be over 11 hours. Think about Lord of the Rings. Think about the Harry Potter audiobooks. They can be incredibly long or incredibly tight and small. Think about it as quality content that you want a new audience to hear. Okay, so if you're ready to have a go, let's do the quick and dirty version of this. So firstly, you're going to have to record an audiobook. Use the Zoom 6. Use the Zoom 6 recorder. So that's the first thing. Get one of these. Fantastic. You'll have it for the rest of your life. Use it. You notice it was what's called an XY microphone. We'll come back to that in a second. So this is a ripper. You can do everything you need to do with this. Buy yourself a pop screen. $20. Thanks for playing. Boom. Okay. And so that's the only kit you need. Then you need to be in a space where there is carpet. And again, why I'm back in my office at home and recording this today is this is where I record audiobooks. So there's carpet on the floor. As you can see, there are books around me. So there's no bouncy surfaces. There's no echo. It's just me. So go into a room that's pretty quiet, carpet on the floor, and you're not bouncing off the walls. Okay, make sure this sort of stuff might be posters, anything at all that absorbs sound. So it creates a warmth to the sound. All you're after is a good, clean sound. Now, how to do it? What I do is I record a chapter a day. So I record in the same location at the same time every morning. So it creates a continuity of your voice and a continuity of the sound. So for example, I do my habit stack. So I get up in the morning, do my habit stack, sit down here. This is my office. I sit down here, there's a cup of coffee, and I record my audiobook. Same time every day. So there's a continuity of my voice. I tend to like my really scary early morning voice because I sound a lot like Barry White. And I can hear the voice, and I just love that early morning voice. So I thought, well, let's do a chapter at a time with that early morning voice. And so therefore, you're not hearing the diversity of a voice through the day. It sounds the same. Now, this is the other bit. I work off paper. All sorts of people record their audiobook off an iPad, say a tablet, right? And I have enormous respect for that. I don't do that. I record it off paper, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to see this. I'm going to try and lift it up. So this is, of course, my computer stand. So my computer's on this, right? I record like this. So I have 2 pages at a time of the script printed out, okay? So double spaced so I can read it nice and easily. It's raised up, as you can see. I read the page, then I do that. Literally that, and I do that so that that's the only sound I have to edit out, so you're not hearing page turning, right? So I do that, which is a whole bit of content, and then, which I then edit out at the end, okay? So as you can see, I use that computer stand, and that works quite well to lift up the script, because as we talked about in the vlog last week, this is about voice. And as you can see, I make sure that I'm sitting up straight, the voice is free and ready to resonate, and you're doing well. You've got breath control, you're not nervous, you're doing fine. So think about the voice. And as I often say, put a tear in your voice, put emotion in your voice. This is your content. You're passionate about it. You're the best person to convey it. So give it some welly, okay? These are your words. Use your voice to claim a new audience. Okay, so we've now got the raw recordings. Fantastic. Now we're going to use a bit of software. Buy Acoustica Mixcraft. Cheap, fantastic. Acoustica Mixcraft will do the job. And it's all there for you. Very, very intuitive. Great interface. Edit it nicely. So with a podcast, you can be a bit quick and dirty because it's a great audience, but it's also a free audience. I'm also very, very careful with the editing of an audiobook because it is a paying customer, so you've got to respect that person. But I also, and this is the other important bit, make sure before you start each chapter, there is 5 seconds of your room silence. And at the end of your recording, there's 5 seconds of your room silence. And why I say room silence, because silence is different everywhere. John Cage, what a legend. Silence is different everywhere. So the silence in this room is different from the silence downstairs on a tiled floor, different to a silence in my garage. So you're going to need 5 seconds to top and tail your recording. The reason why you're going to need that is going to be clear very, very shortly. Now remember, editing could take 3 times or 5 times as long as the recording itself. It depends on the quality of your delivery. Now, again, don't worry about it. If you get a bit nervous and you make mistakes, that's why editing exists. So keep going till it's clean and you can edit out the mistakes. You will save yourself time if you know the content, you've got yourself familiar with the content, maybe you've even rehearsed the content. So you'll have a good sense of how the content moves and you'll speak it, and that'll save a lot of time with the editing. So, but again, if you're getting nervous or you're just having a first go with it, that's not a worry. You can create a clean copy through editing. So the other thing I would say to you, please remember to read your chapters at the start of the recording. Again, this will be important in a sec. So chapter 1, title, chapter 2, conclusion. Right. So once you've saved all your MP3s, into a folder for me, you need to save them as chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. Once you've done all that for me, okay, we've recorded it, we've edited it, what happens now? Or it now gets exciting. So you have saved your sonic files, that's brilliant. We're now going to move to vision. So you need 2 covers for your audiobook. The first is the Instagram size, so the 1-to-1 proportionality, so you'll need that cover, and you'll also need the conventional cover that's for an ebook, so that interesting rectangular shape. So you'll need both those images, save them as your cover. That's terrific. So we've done the sound, we've done the vision, we're doing well. That's all sitting on our hard drive. What do we do now? The story now splits geographically. So the first bit of the story I'm going to tell is for everyone, all our wonderful students and our wonderful friends in the United States, the United Kingdom and Canada. Hi Jules, this is your bit of the story. So you can use directly Audible.com's upload service, www.acx.com. And all the specifications about the files are listed there. Now, the most important thing is, even when I saw them, I went, and I'm a sonic media person, I went, really? Wow, you need all those specifications? Don't even worry about those specifications. Let me give you the quick and dirty version of it. You need to record your files in the same place at the same time every single day. Now, what you need to do is put your microphone about 15 to 20 centimeters away from your mouth. So I'll tell you how I did it. So there's my computer file, there's the things. I put it right there. Can you see that? Put it right, so it's the microphone is there, my mouth is here, and I would attach the pop screen here. So that's how this is where I've recorded it. This is how I do it. So that's how it's done every morning. Don't be too worried about the specifications. Just create that continuity of sound with this about 15 to 20 centimeters away from you, okay? That's the most important thing, pop screen in place. So that'll create the file you need. So if you live in the US, the UK or Canada, you work with Audible directly, thanks for playing, our business is concluded. Now, the story gets really, really interesting if you don't live, like most of us, in the United States, Canada, or the United Kingdom, because you can't upload directly to audible.com. And of course I was so devastated, it's like, oh, I just had this great idea to do an audiobook and oh no, I can't upload it. I found a workaround, which I'm going to tell you about right now. By the way, the reason we can't upload to audible.com directly, is because we're not a Canadian, US or British taxpayer. So all of this actually is about the US tax system. Who knew? But again, I'll give you the workaround that'll sort this problem out. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an aggregator. An aggregator. If you remember, we're recording this at home. That's called disintermediation. We're removing the middlemen. We don't need a studio anymore. We don't need a producer. We're doing it. So we have disintermediation, right? But what we're doing at this point is we are choosing to re-intermediate. We are creating an aggregator, a link in the chain, so that we can disseminate our content, okay? So what an aggregator does is gather in content and then send it out to diverse channels. So here is the aggregator, Authors Republic. Authors Republic, www.authorsrepublic, one word, no apostrophe, authorsrepublic.com. Now you'll check out the specifications for their audio files, which is identical to Audible's audio files, so record it just as I've said there. Don't worry about the specs, just focus on the positioning of the hardware. And you're going to receive 70% of all the money made on your audiobook. So when you upload those files, you're going to actually, it's fascinating to see it happen actually. So what do you do? There's the aggregator, there's Authors Republic. You load each of your chapters up. So chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, you load it up in the order through which it's going to be stitched together. And let me tell you about stitching together. So once all your files are up in order, Authors Republic then takes them, they check them to make sure everything's cool, and then they do this fantastic thing called stitching them. Stitching. So remember that 5 seconds either way? That's why it exists. So Authors Republic then stitch the files together for you and create that magic app that I wish I knew what it was called. I've desperately tried to find it. For my computer scientists out there, if you can tell me, I'd love to know what this app is called. But in an audiobook, you can listen to an audiobook for an hour and then stop and put it away, and the next day you hear it from the same point, right? So what Authors Republic does is that stitches all your files together and then creates that fantastic opportunity to stop and start at the same time. So that's a great service, and they do it all for you. And that's brilliant. So they stitch it together, and then at that point, once they've approved the content, they release it to 15 audiobook providers, including Audible and therefore Amazon. Let's talk money. How are you paid? Well, firstly, with Authors Republic, you've got to have a PayPal account. Now, a lot of us had those sort of years ago. I'd forgotten I had one, but you have a PayPal account. For those of you on eBay, you use this all the time. You list yourself on PayPal as a sole trader. And therefore you're paid directly into your PayPal account, which goes directly to your bank account. So there's one more thing you need to do on Authors Republic, and there's one form you have to fill in. And that is from the US Tax Office. Not joking, but the great Authors Republic point to it, say, fill in that form. It's a one-page form, very, very straightforward. All you confirm is, I am not a US citizen. I do not pay US tax. I'm an Australian citizen. I pay Australian tax, and here is my Australian tax file number. And then you are accountable and responsible for paying Australian tax off that money. And can I say the great thing about Authors Republic is they show you how much you're paid every month. So when it comes to Australian tax time or any other tax time, there is the money you've earned, you print it out, you put that as your international income. So fantastically simple. What a service. I'm a big fan. Authors Republic. And that's it. That's all we're talking about today. It's unbelievable. So if you, yes you, have an interesting piece of content, and can I say, remember, for all our creative writers and our poets out there, team, this is a great income stream for you. You really should be going for this. Say you have an article, a really punchy article that you think will find a wide audience. Then this is useful for you. You can do this. Get yourself a recorder. Get yourself a pop screen. Record, edit, upload. Now, if you want a little bit more information, so you'd like a bit of stuff on training, how to work your voice, branding and so forth, and the nature of the audiobook, then it's interesting that Audible have put up a training course, an entire training course. It's available via https://acx acxuniversity.com, acxuniversity.com. Wonderful series of courses, can I say, all of which are free. Fantastic. I've done them all. They're excellent. So if you'd like a bit more information just to groove yourself into it a little bit, ACX University is the way through. So let's do this. Let's make the world a better place. Let's improve the quality of content out there. Let's improve public discourse. Let's do this. We are academics. We are intellectuals. And yes, let's make some money as we do so. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.